I'm going to tell you a little bit about my favorite Ethiopian mother or woman, however you want to call it. So during training, we had 11 weeks, and so halfway through that, we get introduced to our community for the first time. We call it a site visit, but we need someone to take us there, and so they send someone from the place that you're working at. So for me, that was a school, primary school. And I thought, oh, who am I going to get? Is it going to be the director, the vice director, or maybe just the teacher? And so it ended up being this teacher. Her name was Belinish, and she was about 40 years old. And it's not a story, it's more of a series of events that happened with her and what I learned from her. So that first day that we meet them in the capital city, we're in a hotel conference room, and it's sort of, we're introducing a lot of Ethiopians to Americans for the first time, and a lot of Americans to the people that they're going to be working with for the first time as well. And so we want to get some stereotypes out of the way. And so we ask Americans to say what they think about Ethiopians or stereotypes that they've heard, and we ask Ethiopians to do the same about Americans. And just to break the ice, one of my volunteer friends says to this room full of administrators and teachers, all in their 30s and 40s, I think all Ethiopians are runners. And so the Ethiopians are like laughing hysterically because they're all past their prime and they're not running anymore. And Belinish, who is my counterpart, this fifth grade teacher of English, she will go on to repeat this joke to me several times. Anytime she introduces me to someone in the village or in the town and we're talking about other Peace Corps volunteers, she'll say, there's this one American in Ben's group who thinks that all Ethiopians are runners. How funny is that? And she'll tell people this. Peace Corps is a 2-year-long service. And she tells people this for at least a year and a half. There's this woman somewhere in the same region who thinks this. So Belinish is the type of person who any success that I had with work in Ethiopia was because of her. I co-taught with her, and she turned out to be a better teacher than I was, but I was able to introduce some learning methods, learning aids, to help her teach a little bit better. But when you have such a great person to start with, it's easy to make some improvements, and she's just really open. She has a son who was 11 years old while I was there, named Abel, who proof that she's such a great teacher is that he knows English better than her, and will sometimes help her remember words that she can't remember in English. He also taught himself Arabic by watching the satellite TV that they had, just by seeing the words go across the screen. And so yeah, I also cooked. In Ethiopia, they're well known for their delicious food. If you haven't had it before, I really encourage you to try some. But for this spongy flatbread known as injera, and I thought, oh, I'll make banana pancakes in Belinish's traditional kitchen. And she didn't tell me until the end, after we'd gone through this whole process of like starting the fire, feeding the fire with a lot of firewood. She's like, oh, I don't care for bananas. And so like, she was just so willing to try something new. She was just so open in ways. In many countries, like I think a lot of us would agree that like they say they're well known for their hospitality and they'll welcome you like a family member. And that's true, but in Ethiopia, the culture also runs so deep that they're very, very proud of their culture. They have dances, they have ceremonies, they have music for each region. They're very proud of the fact that they've never been colonized. So coming in as sort of an outsider is very an interesting dynamic, because they're welcoming kind of to a point, to where they're not going to change certain ways that they do things, and that's sort of true everywhere. But Balainish is a very unique Ethiopian, and I'm sure there are dozens in every town, but I was lucky enough to find her to sort of work with her on the different projects that I did, and she was there for emotional support as well. Whenever I'd be like, oh, no one else is working on projects with me, and she'll be like, yeah, I know, it's terrible, but like she was willing to do that and to support me in other ways. And so there was that first icebreaker about Ethiopian runners, and I used this other icebreaker as a sort of way to gauge where people are at and to kind of become friends with them. And I want to be clear, I want to preface that there are no words missing in this icebreaker, but the icebreaker is, what about running makes you go fast? And I'll ask people that and see how they respond. And some people will say, wait, what? What about running makes you go fast? And some people will play along, and some people will just dismiss it. But I was lucky enough to go back and visit Balainish after the Sierra Leone extension that I went on. And so I went back and I was able to ask her that question. And it was made a little bit funnier due to the language difference there. But she was able to say, she said two different things. She said, you run fast to get out of the rain and into the shade. And then she quoted, Ethiopia is well known for their long distance runners. And she quoted one of the most famous Ethiopian runners, Haile Gebrselassie, Selassie, and he said, running is the highest form of calculation, which I had no idea what that meant, but it sort of showed that she was willing to give that sort of nonsense icebreaker thought and consideration and think through it. And so she just is herself in ways that encourage me and all the others around her to be herself, to be themselves. And so that's sort of what I learned coming back, to sort of try to be that person here, and to search out and find those other people around me here at UMSI.